And so the company stood before the lair of the marsh dwellers. A heaviness, cold and suffocating, descended upon them like a gathering storm. Long they pondered their road and all that had befallen them, yet little comfort came. For ever in their minds there lay the memory of the blackened blade, long and fell, with its iron ring graven coldly into the hilt, and of the slow death of Ost-in-Edhil, whose silent ruin seemed now less a memory than a warning. As they spoke, a shadow descended upon them, subtle yet unyielding, as though some hidden will had turned its gaze toward them. Unspoken, yet keenly felt, was the certainty that they were no longer unobserved. Thus they turned south once more, bereft of their guide Harith. They placed their trust in Grimwalker, who led them onward towards Setnamen, far beneath the southern eaves of the misty mountains, where shadow lies long and seldom lifts. Many weary days they passed, and each seemed a burden heavier than the last. Sky hung ever low and ashen, a thin rain fell that neither freshened nor cleansed the spirit. Once, though, in the gloom they beheld a jagged ruin of a distant tower, stark against the grey, and above it wheeled dark Creebane, crying harsh tidings to an unseen master. At one time Setnamen spoke, and led them from the path, for she deemed she had espied a shorter way up a steep and treacherous bank of loose stone. Yet the hill betrayed them, and their labour gained no ground. So they returned, chastened and grim, to the southern road, which itself seemed less a road than a fading memory of one. The days wore on, they passed broken remnants of elder days. Stones, half swallowed by earth, and pale traces once fair, yet no living hand had tended them for many an age. Then upon a day of deepening gloom, when the rain clung like a shroud and the light failed, even at noon, they found Letheriel was gone. It seemed she had wandered in search of herbs, drawn perhaps by some hidden knowledge or call of memory. Fear stirred among them, for the land was ill-suited to straying, and darker things might walk unseen. Yet their dread proved vain, for after a time her voice came faintly through the mist, and she returned unharmed. So they gathered again, though unease lingered, and pressed onward with greater haste. On the 7th day they came at last within sight of Setnamen's bounds, though the mound itself lay hidden yet. There, upon a lonely rise, they were met by 5 dun lendings, stern and silent wardens of that ancient place. Their eyes were hard, and in them lay neither welcome nor fear. They spoke briefly with Asvard, and their words were a warning none might approach the sacred mound and remain unmarked. Then, as swiftly as they had come, they withdrew, and were lost among the folds of the land like shapes recalled into shadow. Yet the companions would not turn aside, though the warning lay heavy on them. Their purpose burned the brighter for it. They resolved to wait for night, and under cover pass unseen by watchful eyes. And so they did. At last, beneath a moon veiled in drifting cloud, they came to the great mound of Setnamen. There dread rose suddenly in Asvard's heart, swift and choking, so that his courage faltered as if seized by an unseen hand. But Letheriel, perceiving his plight, gave a draught wrought with elven craft, and strength returned to him, though his breath came still quick and uneasy. Even as they gathered themselves, a shape of terror emerged from a broken pillar beside the mound. A fell wraith, pale and hollow, yet filled with a malice older than memory. A chill like death went before it. The company stood and fought, though dread gnawed at their limbs. Then Setnamen drew forth the black blade, and in a single stroke, swift and terrible, she smote the creature, and its fell presence was scattered like smoke before a bitter wind. Salathir Wraithbane, Sigilfly Slayer, murmured Dravi. Awe and unease mingled in his voice. For as she stood, the blade yet lifted, the dim light waved about her, and her form seemed uncertain, as though it flickered between the seen and the unseen. And there were those who looked upon her then and were troubled. Ethereal then turned to the ancient door at Setnamen, where the runes lay cut deep though worn long by years. In a low voice she began to chant of the elder Dale, though their meaning lay beyond her knowing. At her utterance the stone stirred, and with a slow and grievous sound the door yielded and opened inward, breathing forth a cold air long undisturbed. Into that darkness they went. Dravi led them, but scarce had they passed within when he heard a faint and treacherous click, and he sprang back. Asvard searched then the cunning stonework, and by fortune or hardiness escaped a snare laid in ages past, whose bite would have been swift and final. Thereafter they moved with care, for the mound was fraught with hidden peril, and seemed unwilling to suffer their tread. At length they came into a chamber wherein stood 3 basins, one of black basalt, dark as night and unlit, one of white marble, pale as bone, and one of yellow stone, dim and withered. Long they studied the runes that lay about them, worn yet not wholly lost, and at last they poured water into each basin, as if following what seemed to be true. Then a strange wonder came upon them. Before their sight appeared 2 figures, pale as memory and grievous to behold. Priestesses of old, whose vigil had ended in sorrow when the mound was defiled. Silent they stood, yet a blessing passed from them, like a breath upon a dying flame. And for a fleeting moment the shadow lifted, and hope stirred faintly once more. But it did not endure. With a sharp and sudden sound, like the breaking of ancient bonds, 2 hidden doors in the northern wall sprang open, revealing passages that fell away into deeper darkness. And from those black ways there seemed to come a whisper, faint yet cold, as of fate not wholly asleep, and not willing to be denied.